So I'll actually start by letting you in on a little secret. Every now and again, on January 1st, I will come and just pray throughout the temple. And on some occasions, when I come to pray, because the church is usually closed, what I also do is stand right here and I deliver some sort of lesson to a room that looks just like this. And so I believe that God prepares us for everything that we're supposed to encounter. We are observing the Lenten season today, and we focus on the fourth Sunday in this 40-day period of prayer and fasting. I like to think of Lent as the time we consciously create to generate and create the space in the middle of our busy lives so that we can reconnect to the presence of the living God. This 40-day period gives us an opportunity to overcome the internal negativity that could be impacting our ability to do our spiritual work. See, we have to remember that we are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe that's governed by spiritual law, and there is no way around the spiritual work. Like, spiritual beings have to do the spiritual work. And so every now and again, when we lose sight of who we are and whose we are, circumstances can shift themselves just so that we can be reminded to do our work. This morning, we focus on an aspect of the creative capacity that's often overlooked and undervalued, and that is the Sabbath. Somebody say the Sabbath, right where you are. Say the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a type of rest. It's a rest for the mind. It's a rest for the soul. It's not just a rest for the physical body. It's the time when we become quiet and we become still. How many of you are finding it difficult right now to be quiet and to be still? Some things can occur that can just kind of upset the quiet, like walking into a grocery store and seeing shelves you expect to be full be empty. That can upset you, right? I didn't have a reference when I walked into my local grocery store and went down the canned goods aisle and saw goods I expected to be on the shelf not be on the shelf. I had to catch myself because in that moment, Jerome, I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? I've never seen this before, Brian. I had to bring myself back to the truth that I know and remember that just because what I need on this shelf is not there doesn't mean that when I go down the next aisle, I won't find exactly what I need. But in the moment, I've got to bring myself back to the place of quiet and stillness so that I can remember that God is the source of my supply and not my local grocer. There's an African proverb that says, smooth seas don't make skillful sailors. So every now and again, we're going to go through some stuff. And so Lent is intended to help us be still. But stillness is not a passive activity. Being still is an active, Regina, passivity. Let me help you with what I mean. I'm saying that in order to be still, we have to actively hush the senses. In order to be still, we have to do what the psalmist says and be highly intentional about being still so that we can be still and know that I am God. But the moment I allow myself to be still, I can tap into what he's trying to tell me. But I've got to be actively passive so that I can be still. Because the noise can make you not be still. So when the psalmist says, if I can be still, I can know. And if I can know, I can find God. So what do we mean when we say be still? We mean just take your attention away from the senses. How many of you know every now and again you got to come away from what your eyes and ears are telling you? Because what your eyes and ears may be telling you may not be what's best for you in the moment. What your eyes and ears are telling you could be the very thing that has you shaking at your core and forgetting your faith. I said on Wednesday that fear on fire is more powerful than faith on ice. So one of the things that we have to be committed to do is throwing our fear out. But the good news is you only need a mustard seed's worth of faith in order to overcome the fear. You don't need a whole lot of faith, but you have to use the little bit of faith you have. And if I will use it, and if I will be still, if I will quiet, if I will hush my senses, if I will hush what my eyes and ears are telling me, then I can quiet the noise. And when I am able to be still, after I be still, I can know. Now, this is not an intellectual knowing. When he says be still and know, he's not talking about an intellectual process. He's talking about, Darlene, the kind of knowing that only comes when you get through what you've been through. Right? So when he says be still and know, this knowing is the assurance that you can make it through because you've already been through. Right? We've already been through some divorces. We've already been through some foreclosures. We've already been through some pink slips. We've already been through some loss of our children. We've already been through slavery. We've already been through the Holocaust. We've already been through the Depression. And here it is, on the other side, we made it. You don't get that knowledge lest you go through it. So when he says, be still and know, if I can be still, then I can connect to that innate knowing that has brought me through before. And he says, be still and know that I am God. That's the good part right there. That's the good part right there, y'all. Because once I be still and then know, I can connect to the truth. When this is the same truth that Moses encountered when the Lord was sending me out. He said, who should I say sent me? Right? The man of God wants to know, who should I say sent me? And the Lord says to him, tell them I am sent you. Tell him I am sent me? Yeah. Tell him that I am who I am sent you. What does that mean? That means, we know that means the I am that I am is the aye, ashe, aye. What that means is God saying to us, I will be whatever the moment demands. I will be whatever the challenge demands. I will be whatever the difficulty demands. There is no experience that's too difficult that I am is not equipped to handle. But in order to reconnect to that V, I've got to be still and know that I am. There's work to do for spiritual beings, particularly during times like this. If the gold shrinks during a time like this, if the faith field shrink during a time like this, what hope is there for those folks who don't sit in church every week? If the people who have been through the classes lose their stuff right through here, what hope is there for someone who is just unsure? See, sometimes just you showing up with an air of confidence that you can make it through, it will help somebody else get through. Are you with me? And so one of the things that we have to be willing to do is come apart. We've got to be willing to come apart. We've got to be willing to take advantage of the Sabbath. I want to read something to you from your Keep a True Lent text. If you have your Lenten text at home, and I'm going to ask you, just keep me right center on this camera. I just want to stay right here on the camera. Page 171 from Keep a True Lent. It says, the true Sabbath is the consciousness that we have fulfilled the divine law in both thought and act. The Sabbath is a very certain, definite thing. It is a state of mind that makes us, or it is a state of mind that we enter or acquire when we go into the silence, into the realm of spirit, There we find true rest and peace. So in order to get away from the noise, sometimes we've got to be willing to enter into the Sabbath or enter into the silence or enter into the rest. Why is it important to get away from the noise? Because we know that the noise has the ability to impact our behavior. There was a study that was done by some psychologists. And in this study, what they did was when a student was coming out of their campus building, they had the student drop all of the books that they had in their arms. And the first time through, when they had the students drop all of the books that they had in their arms, 5 out of 10 people who walked by would help the student who dropped all of their books pick their books up, right? So the first time through, 5 out of 10 people would help someone who was distressed. What they changed the next time through was they started up a lawnmower, and all the lawnmower was doing was making noise. It wasn't cutting anybody. It wasn't hurting anybody. All it was it was nearby Jamie, and it was making noise. When they ran the test the second time, the student would drop all of her books, and only 1 out of 10 people would stop to help. Why? Because noise affects our behavior. How is the noise on the television affecting us? What's happening to us mentally, emotionally, physiologically from the noise? So what we want to be able to do is give ourselves a rest from the noise. What we want to be able to do is make the most of the rest. And so I want to encourage you to, put this in your notes, I want to encourage you to sit in the rest. Somebody say sit in the rest. I want to encourage you to sit in the rest. Why is it important to sit in the rest? Because sometimes what you need doesn't come right away. Right? In the old church, they would call it tarrying. Right? In the old church, you would tarry until the Lord came. Or you would tarry until you heard. Or you would tarry until you felt a touch. Why? Because sometimes you just have to wait. God does not move according to our agenda, according to our schedule, according to our time. The fact of the matter is, life is proceeding just as God intended it to be. The birds were up and chirping this morning, and they had no fear about any virus anywhere. There were buds pushing through frozen soil this morning, full of life, and not concerned about a virus anywhere. See, life continues moving on. It's the people of God who have to remember who they are and whose they are. And sometimes, in order to truly reconnect, the thing that we have to do is wait. Scripture says, they that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not get weary. They shall walk and not faint. So what if you feel like you can't fly over the trouble? Maybe it's because you just haven't waited. What if you feel like every time you start walking or running, you get weary, you get tired? Maybe it's just because you haven't waited. It takes strength to wait. But if I wait, I'll renew. Oh my God. Somebody better put that in their notes. Somebody better tweet that. That's good right there. So the opportunity then is to spend my time waiting. And when I wait, I have to experience the presence of the living God. So the first point is to sit in the rest. Somebody say sit in the rest. The second point is to not just sit in the rest, but to stay in the rest. See, it takes intention to sit in the rest. It also takes intention to stay in the rest. Whenever we go into the silence into our secret place, we have to remember to close the door behind us. But staying in the rest is a highly intentional activity. See, when we decide to stay for a while, what that also means is that we are assuming that we can count on the space we're staying in. Let me say it to you this way. Those of us who are sitting here were intentional about making sure that where we sat, we could stay in. We needed some reliability. We needed some dependability. We needed some stability. We needed to know that the intelligence back of where we were going to stay was going to show up for us, so that when we decided to sit down, there was something to support us. It's the same when we decide to stay. In order to stay, we have to know that we will meet the presence of the living God. So we can't be more confident in the stability of the chair we're sitting in than we are of the time that we will spend staying in the presence of the Lord, to make sure that we are not overcome with the noise from outside. We got to be willing to sit in the rest. We got to be willing to stay in the rest. We have another power that's important for us when it comes to our ability to stay. One of the most important powers that we have available to us is that of original faith thinking. Somebody type in for me, if you're watching via YouTube, type in original faith thinking. Original faith thinking. See, faith thinking is done outside of the context of the appearances, right? Faith thinking is done outside of the context of what's showing up in our life, world, and affairs. See, if my faith is limited by what shows up, then I've already lost the race. Because faith is the perceiving power of the mind linked with the power to shape substance. It's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. The fact that I don't see a breakthrough doesn't mean that a breakthrough isn't already here. Not coming, here. I am my breakthrough. I am my breakthrough. Somebody type that in. Repeat that. I am my breakthrough. Let me hear you say that. I am my breakthrough. So it requires us to be able to see the opportunity. I love the faith thinkers who created Facebook and Google. They were amateurs when they created that. They were able to see an opportunity as they stayed in the rest. There's an opportunity for you, but you got to be willing to stay in it to see it. Somebody say sit in the rest. Somebody say stay in the rest. When we commit to a thinking in faith, we don't let precedent influence what we see. We don't make our comparisons or our analysis or our conclusions based upon what's showing up. We make an intentional effort to enter into the silence so that we can experience the Sabbath and hear what thus said the Lord. Are you with me? So we want to sit in the rest. We want to sit in the Sabbath. We want to stay in the Sabbath. And then we want to pray in the Sabbath. Let me read this to you. From Keep It True LENT, it says, when we lay hold of the indwelling Christ, the Savior, we are raised out of the Adam consciousness into the Christ consciousness. We then enter the seventh stage of our unfoldment, where we find sweet rest and peace. Oh, to be able to have peace in times of turmoil. Michelle asked me how I was doing when I walked in. I'm like, actually, I'm doing pretty good. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, you know, when people feel some kind of way, you know what I'm saying? Like it's almost like being at a transition service. You have to moderate your joy, even though you have a joy in you, because you want to respect where other people might be. But I'm good, right? I'm Gucci. Why? Because I am in the living presence and power of God. Where else could I be? How else could I be? Right? I'm looking for the opportunity on the other side of this experience. I'm looking for the growth as I go through it. And I want to encourage you, wherever you are, I sure hope it's right here. Wherever you are, where it is, it's pointed to me. Point to it for me so I know how to look at it. Wherever it is, that's where I want you to be. But you've got to be prayed up through it. Why? Because what we feed, we flourishes. There's a story about this farmer, and every Saturday night, they would take their roosters out to fight. And he had a red rooster and a black rooster. And they noticed that his rooster always won. And then one of the young men asked him after the fight, he said, "How come your rooster always wins?" He said, "Well, I just fight the one that I've been feeding all week." What's the moral of the story? What we feed wins. What we feed flourishes. What we feed performs. If I feed on the noise, if I feed on the hysteria, if I feed on what everybody's saying is supposed to be, if I feed on the fact that I have to be in the house, maybe it's a good opportunity to get to know the people I live with again. Maybe they're nicer than I used to think they were. What I feed flourishes. If we will make ourselves channels through which God can come forth in this season, we have to be willing to raise our thoughts and feelings to the level of God. That's why the writer says, your thoughts are not my thoughts and your ways are not my ways. It's not saying that my thoughts can't be his thoughts and my ways can't be his ways. It's saying that I have to come up to a level where my thoughts are your thoughts and my ways are your ways. That's what I want. That's what I want for you in this season. Prayer pushes us to the core of spiritual life, because to pray is to change. Prayer is intended to plug us in. And watch this. We all have a spiritual responsibility to perceive and penetrate the deeper meaning of the events that are happening in our lives. Right? Like, this is not just out of nowhere. I'm not talking about where it originated. I'm talking about how it came in a time where we as a collective think the way we think. And so if we don't want this kind of experience, we have to begin to think in different ways collectively. Because the truth is, there is no difference between you and me. We not only are one as we're impacted in this, but we've always been one. But now we just see it more differently. See, there used to be, about 6 weeks ago, there used to be a place that Idris Elba could get to and the average person couldn't. There used to be an access that Kevin Durant could have that the average person couldn't. There used to be something that Tom Hanks could get that the average person couldn't get. But now, it seems like just like they get it, other people can get it. If it can happen for a virus, it's got to be able to happen for abundance. If it can happen for this, it's got to be able to happen for that, because God is no respecter of person. It will rain on the just and the unjust. So you ought to just be looking for your increase right through here. You got to understand, we have to understand and not just go through, we have to understand the consciousness that produces an experience. Maybe it's calling us up to a deeper understanding and a deeper commitment to love and care for one another. Maybe it's calling us up to care for our planet in a very different way. Because she seems to be saying, I'm going to be all right. Right? The planet seems to be saying, I'm good. I'm not disturbed at all. You all the ones tripping. And if you keep tripping, there won't be as many of you here to trip. So what is it pulling us toward? What is it trying to teach us? What is it trying to help us understand? And we may not be able to perceive it intellectually, but I believe if we will center ourselves in prayer, if we will make a commitment to sit in the Sabbath, if we will do what must be done, and if we will tap into the strength that gives us the ability to stay in the rest, and if while we are working through and while we're going through, we will be praying for one another, we'll be praying for our community, we'll be praying for our country, we'll be praying for our nation, we'll be praying for our world. See, there is enough power right here if we really understand it to send it right back to wherever it came from. But you can't do that and be afraid at the same time. That's why it says we haven't been given a spirit of fear, but of power. But power that you don't use is useless. Not just a spirit of power, but also a spirit of love. And love that you don't use is useless. Not just a spirit of love, but a spirit of sound mind, of clear judgment, of understanding. So maybe the next time you have an issue with somebody, rather than tripping all the way out, maybe remember that that love is more powerful than the difficulty. Maybe remember that our being together is more important, particularly for us Americans. Being together is more important than our rugged individualism. Even for us as metaphysical Christians, like our individualism is one of the ways we identify ourselves with God, but it's intended to make us realize that we are one in the one, not one separate from the one. And so in this season of rest, I want to encourage you to make the most of this Sabbath. Be willing to sit in it. Sit so that you can hush out and quiet the noise. Sit so that your eyes and ears are not focused on what the media is telling you or what the people are saying. Because I believe somewhere it also says, eyes have not seen and ears have not heard, and neither has entered into the heart of humankind. Woo! What God has in store for you. And the powerful thing is, I get to choose what I'll pay attention to. So will I sit for the media, or will I sit for the master? The next thing I've got to be willing to do is just stay. Don't rush out of the presence of God. I was speaking to you, Lord, I didn't hear nothing. It's because you didn't wait. I'm concerned, Lord, I need some more faith. No, you don't need more faith. You need to just wait. I need it right now, God. Learn how to wait, my child. Because they that wait, they'll renew their strength. And as we work through, as we walk through, I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you. What does that mean? That means I don't have a bad word to say about you. Not to you or to anyone else. I won't harm your reputation. I won't harm the misunderstanding. I'll be more compassionate. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. We have to remember the power that exists in our living spoken word. There is no idle word, just your creative capacity. So I won't harm you with the words from my mouth. I love you, so I'm going to speak life to you. I need you to survive. I'll be praying for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. And whether we are in a large sanctuary that's filled with the Holy Spirit and a few wonderful, willing channels, or watching digitally, all over the world, wherever you are, we love you. We need you to survive. And the great news is, we are all destined for a time such as this. None of us are here by chance. None of us are on the planet at this time by mistake. We are all here for a divinely appointed time to decide, to choose, to determine whether or not we're going to be a part of the solution or help to perpetuate the problem. Choose ye now, herewith. As you are in the silence, I believe the Spirit of the living God will tell you exactly what you ought to do. God bless you. I love you.